Welcome back to another episode of
SOS.
Wait, your favorite bitches is what I was going to say.
NCIS.
NCIS, Los Angeles.
SOS at CIS, Los Angeles. SOS,
You sound like the Roz, the secretary on Monsters, Inc.
Mike Wazowski. Mike Wazowski. Oh, you didn't fill out your paperwork.
So
Anyway,
you guessed it. We are talking about capitalism.
If you couldn't tell, this is an episode about capitalism.
Yes, and we're talking about it because it's close to home and like how it's affecting our country and our lives today. But before we get started, we've got a Patreon, guys. So if you're a true fan, a true SOSer, you're going to go on our website, sos-podcast.com, and go right to our Patreon link, and you're going to sign up for $3.
Sign up.
Or
what if we knew how to brainwash people or like hypnotize people? You're going to sign up for $3 a month or $7 a month or $11 a month. $11. Obviously, we're desperate because we're brand new. We're trying it.
We're not desperate.
You're right. Whatever. If you don't want to do it, it's
cool.
fine.
We're cool.
Fine.
It's fine. Like, we don't need you.
Please sign up.
It's reverse psychology. We don't need you. But shout out to our Patreon. So we're going to be talking about capitalism and all of its just great benefits and the
chokehold it has on all of us.
Yeah, just a gentle, loving chokehold.
Yeah.
A gentle, loving gun to our head, so to speak. And it's really interesting, like our SOS moment, so to speak, is all about these Republican states, a lot of red states that are freaking out over unemployment. A lot of these states are freaking out too because they just can't seem to get people back to work.
And you know what's ironic to me? I'm kind of just jumping right into it, but I was thinking about this. When we say a lot of red states, obviously it's a lot of like southern states, Midwest, where a lot of the population are blue collar workers.
Yes.
And
service industry.
And those people are the very people who are making more off of unemployment than from their like minimum wage below poverty line, oftentimes jobs.
Yeah.
And so the irony that those states are implementing laws that are against those blue collar workers is proof that the politics of that state, the politicians, are not actually representing the people, the majority of people who live there.
Yeah.
And that's the irony to me in all of a lot of what red states fight for, when a lot of their population is low income blue collar workers. And as we have, like, I mean, I don't say that with judgment. I was a server for 10 years. Like, these are things that you are told that this party fights for example, and yet everything they're doing is to keep you down.
Yeah. And it's not just, I mean, it's mostly Republicans in red states, but let's not, like, there's also asshole Democrats too, like Joe Manchin, who's a Democratic governor or senator. Whatever. I don't give a fuck what he is. Mm-hmm. He sucks, and he also has been voting down for extra unemployment and healthcare benefits and all this bullshit. But like the states specifically that are like teaming up, like so Idaho, Iowa, Mississippi, Alabama, Missouri, Montana, North Dakota, South Carolina, Tennessee, Wyoming, and Utah.
I like how you said Missouri like misery. Pretty accurate.
I don't know how to talk, but
Missouri.
Yes. They're all like they're announcing that they're going to start refusing the $300 extra unemployment to their people. So like you said, it's literally a chokehold on their blue collar workers that are the salt of the earth.
Yes.
And who make them
who uphold
money.
The economy there.
Exactly.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I really am like, this gets me going because I'm like, people who I hear so much on the argument at the other side is these people are lazy. They don't want to go back to work. They just want to sit at home and take unemployment. Yeah. However, I guarantee you that if going back to work would get them more money, they would be glad to do it. It's not a thing of I don't want to work. It's a thing of I need to survive and I need to do what makes me the most money, which I think everyone can understand because of the way our country's run. Yes. Money is God. Yes. So here we are with people who are making more money on unemployment, which, let me explain, obviously, we had to file for unemployment. And what happens is you tell them how much you were making. I can say I was making 15 to 1,700 per week at my job. Prove it. Give them I can prove all of that. And they say, okay, here's 450 a week. With taxes taken out, it's 400 a week. That's what you get. Even though we know that you proved that your living expenses you were living on 1,700 a week. Yep. Thank you. You're approved. Here's 400 a week.
Yep.
So I don't think people who are not on unemployment, I don't think they understand that.
No.
Unemployment is not covering the expenses you made before. It's actually usually lower. And so then if you're making more on unemployment than you were making at your job, you are well below poverty line. And going back to work is not because you're lazy and you don't want to work. It's because our system is not set up to pay people a living wage for the work they do.
Exactly. And this is very personal because this is me basically. Like I'm getting paid more than I did I was working at a very, very busy, popular restaurant. They closed down. They let everybody go. Their mistake. And this is something where, and like, maybe if I was 10 years younger, I'd be like, yeah, fuck it. Maybe I'll just go back.
Yeah.
But like when you're at a certain age and you've dealt with the shit that you've dealt with in many, not just the restaurant that we had worked at, but like many restaurants where a lot of toxic shit goes down and they don't pay you on top of that, where there's little to no job security, there's little to no benefits,
little to no respect,
no dignity in the job. You are you're subject to be fired on the spot in a lot of these restaurants.
You're completely replaceable.
And it's just so funny that all around the country there's all these restaurants and businesses and like retail too, they're just like, I just can't find anybody to work. I just can't find people to work. And it's just like,
instead of taking that as a sign for like, well, people are lazy and they're staying at home, well, we should stop unemployment.
Yeah.
You need to wake the F up and be like, oh, this is actually a sign that our entire system is flawed. And these people who are working these massively long hours, intensive physical labor jobs are not making enough money. Why don't you look at it that way instead of, oh, why can't we find people? Well, it's because you're not paying.
There was like a Fox News. I put this on my story. I don't know if you saw. There's like a Fox News. People were fucking talking about how, people just can't find anybody to work. And this one commentator was like, wow, it's just so crazy that we have to pay people to come to work.
I did see that. He was serious. He was dead serious.
Wow. So we also need to pay people to come to work. And I'm like,
I'm sorry. And also,
what?
One thing that I don't think people, obviously, if you're on unemployment, you understand this, but I don't know who's listening. So, aside from the aliens, they're tuned in.
Our biggest fans.
Our biggest fans. There is a max to unemployment. So they ask you to prove what income you are making, right? And then, but the max they'll give you, at least for us here in California, but it's the same, is $450 per week. And if you have taxes taken out, as will eventually be taken out, you're making $400 a week. $400 a week is the max. So when we filed last year, when the pandemic hit, I was making that. And as well as a single mother of 3 with an entire family to feed and support.
Oh God.
She's making the same.
Yeah. And we can get into that too, because women have been the number one fucking victim of this pandemic unemployment catastrophe. They make up 100% of jobs. Women make up 100% of jobs lost. 100%.
What?
It's not even like it's a fucking fact. Look it up. 100% of jobs lost. And and what that entails is women we're already not getting paid enough. So they're not getting
paid enough, nor are we getting paid as much as our male counterparts.
Exactly. So they're like, okay, well, I'm making a little bit with unemployment, so I'm going to stick there. Women who have families are staying home because if they have a partner who's working full time, they're working full time now. They don't need to pay for daycare anymore. So they're home with their children. So now it's this fucking catch-22
where you're forced back into the 1950s.
Yeah, exactly. So women are fucked anyway, and like women that are trying to get back into the workforce, no matter what that job is, it's 10 times harder because they took this setback, and because a lot of employers look at that as a downfall. You're taking care of your child. They look at it as a
downfall if you're a woman. If a man had that time away and said, well, it was the pandemic, I had to help my family, that's not a downfall.
Yep. And it's just so good. There's I'll shout out this article. It's from theweek.com about all this bullshit. Theweek.com, yeah. And they put it so well. Like, workers have gotten enough money through the pandemic rescue packages to reconsider their careers and are trying to get out of sectors with exploitive, low-paying jobs like retail and restaurant work. And there's no signs of worker shortages, but rather like a dearth of good jobs. And that's the thing too. It's like this whole fucking industry, retail and service industry, restaurant jobs are like the number one like exploitive fucking.
Oh yeah.
And like it's just funny, like that's where we come from.
Yep.
And those are the jobs that are the most exploitive, and they're the ones that like are needing workers so much. And it's like, sorry, what do you think?
If anybody, honestly, if there was a way, think about it in common sense. If there was a way for any human, regardless of what they would prefer to do with their lives, take that away from it. If there was a way for any and all of us to go to work and make enough money to keep a roof over our heads and support ourselves or our family, that's all you need. And you take it from there and you figure out how to get into a career that you really love. Okay, all people want to do is survive. That's all people want to do. And if you cannot do that and a country cannot provide that, and then you look at how Scandinavians live in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, how they are supporting their citizens in their well-being and in their livelihood, and nobody having to fear for certain basic human needs. That if you were... I love aliens. I talk about them every 30 seconds. If the aliens are here, as they are, watching us, and you want to know why they're not communicating with us? Ryan, he doesn't think they're here. But you want to know why they're not communicating with us? It's because they're watching us and realizing how stupid we are because we haven't even figured out how to distribute the resources that our own planet has. And why do we have a starving population when we have enough resources?
Yeah, you want to hear a fun story, fun little example of this? So I have a friend who owns his own company and has done pretty well throughout the years. They're very well off. And he was recently complaining that he just can't hire workers. And it's just so funny because we know how he deals his business, and he hires basically what I feel like there's an actual word for this, but he basically hires through an outside company, like basically day workers, like for the most part,
through Monster or some job site.
It's basically to get around so he doesn't pay them benefits. This is how he's conducted his, and if you think that he didn't take the PPP loan from Trump, you're kidding yourself. He absolutely did. Oh, wow. So they took the loan. He's very well off. Took the loan. Hires like temp workers or day work or whatever the fuck to get out for the most part.
Day workers reminds me of like vampires, like day walkers.
Yeah, and then like gets out of paying them benefits, and then right now is complaining about not being able to hire anybody at all because the unemployment and all that shit. And
how dare the government assist you with not even... That's the thing. They're mad at unemployment. Sorry to cut you off.
No, I was done.
When you're mad at unemployment, when unemployment itself isn't even giving people enough to live on. That's the irony of it.
It's still below the poverty line. It's still the bare fucking minimum to live.
It's not even bare minimum. It's well below the poverty line.
And like, hello, Black and brown people are like the most fucked
as always
from this whole thing. They're the most at risk and the most exploitive. And I have some fucking stats that like I found very interesting. African Americans, Latinos will have much higher unemployment rates. Still have much higher unemployment rates. For instance, the unemployment rate for Black workers was 9.7. That for Latino workers 7.9%, while that for white workers stood only at 5.3. And that's still going on, and that will still go on forever. So like as much as we think we are fucked ourselves. Like there's,
Yeah,
like think of our fucking Latino and Black brothers and sisters that will have a harder time getting back into the workforce.
Yep.
When jobs start opening up.
People aren't even thinking about families to support. Like I'm in the context of like, oh wow, if that was me, I'm only supporting myself.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think about that too, because I think I was talking about this with another family member of that friend who owns this company, and it's like, well, what would he think about like me? You know what I mean? If he was asking how I was doing, and I got really like introspective thinking about it because I was just like, at first I was like, oh, he probably thinks I'm this lazy, American that's just reaping off the benefit, unemployment. First of all, unemployment is our money. We're getting our taxes back, idiots. I'm just getting my own money back, fucking asshole. Anyway, I'm not saying this is what he thought, but this is just running through my head of like what he would think. And it's also just like, there's a lot of people who aren't as, fortunate as me, where I can kind of figure out what I want to do and not have to resort to going back to an exploitive, toxic job that pays nothing, where I was having panic attacks all the fucking time. And I'm not a monolith. There's many people in the service industry that have the same exact experiences.
Oh my God. When I still drive by where Alyssa and I used to work together, I get like PTSD. Like a little bit of me just dies.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know. I think, well, what you said also about like, what would, you're talking about a loved one, a family member, a loved one think of you in that position. A big problem when it comes to people like expanding their views on racism, on literally anything, is what they'll do is if they have a loved one who suffers from something, or let's talk what you're just saying, or racism, for example, like for your family member, he knows that you're going through this. He might really look at you and be like, wow, that's really messed up. I can't believe they're not helping you with this. And you become the exception to him.
Right.
You do not open his mind into him being like, wow, this is actually proof that things are not the way I thought. He sees you as an exception and therefore doesn't look at the big picture anymore. It's like, I have close family members who I haven't dated a white man since like college. And so who generally wouldn't maybe be okay with interracial relationships. And when they have seen that with me, completely love the guy and see it as no different from family, and genuinely like, wow, this is an incredible person. I love him. I love that. And I'm like, why is that? And then I realize it's because they love me. They see me as an exception, and they don't look at, and they can't make that connection between the rest of the world. You see an interracial couple that you don't know, you're judging it. And it's like it's like a mental defect. Like, why can you not look at someone you love and see, oh, maybe I've been thinking about this all wrong? Why do you look at it and think, well, Alyssa's the exception because she's a hard worker, but she just can't make enough money. Right. Connect the fucking dots.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of, in this research for this episode, I kind of got really Marxist.
Good.
And we were saying it's just fucking inevitable. Get on the train, guys. But
I really want Angela Davis on the podcast.
Yes.
Side note.
Oh my God, I would fucking die. But there's this thing that he talks about that rings so true to what's going on right now. I mean, a lot of things, but there's this thing called the Industrial Reserve Army, and it's basically what capitalism it was born to create. So the Industrial Reserve Army happens because capitalism, you have a business owner and they hire a bunch of workers, a bunch of, blue collar, whatever kind of workers. And because of how investments go and how the company will grow, they'll hire more employees. But at the end of the day, they'll create all these jobs and they'll have to let a lot of them go because of how the company's evolving. So it creates a surplus of workers. It creates a surplus of these workers.
Of unemployed workers?
Exactly, of unemployed workers because they have to let them go. And he calls it Industrial Reserve Army. And basically they're very important for classical capitalism, and the reason that businesses are constantly changing the way they operate and so always need a large supply of idle workers to fling into new projects at a moment's notice. And the Industrial Reserve Army also allows capitalists to better exploit the people they do employ because it exerts a competition that forces workers to submit to overwork and to subjugation under the dictates of capital. And this is like quotes from his book, Capital. Karl Marx. Get it. But that makes so much fucking sense.
Yeah, it does.
And this is exactly what capitalism does. Oh my God, this reminds me of a TikTok that I saw the other day of this guy in the government who worked like, I forget, he was like a spy, but he also dealt with like, he was like deep in the government, but retired, so he could like talk about this. And his daughter was interviewing him, and
He's
was
probably
like,
not alive anymore.
Oh, she asked him. He was like, she was like, how long do you think this country can sustain itself the way it is now, like with capital, everything, how we're just running
systems in place?
And he had his whole entire life, and he was like high up. He had like a crazy top secret clearance. This guy, and he was like 10 years tops.
I even think that's wow.
It's like too generous.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know. He would know, not me. But I'm just like, wow. I was really like, what do we got? 3 years?
But it's like, it makes so much sense to how it's going on right now with all the reserve army that's happening here, with the surplus of workers that need to find jobs that aren't going to kill them. And it's like, but think about it on a base level. It's like, no, you got to work. You got to, go bring back to the economy. Think about it, what you're doing. We are born, at least our many generations in modern society are born to start work in their late teens and to work for fucking 40, 50 years all the time, 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Their entire lives, 40 to 50 years, and then retire. So they have enough money to retire to live for 10 years until they die?
And these working 40 to 50 years in these jobs, that intensely creates health issues that make it so that when you retire, you can't even enjoy your life.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, exactly. Like my husband's job, a lot of the people in his line of work that do art department, and they move things around on sets and stuff like that. By the time they retire, they have so many back issues and shoulder issues and all these things. By the time they can retire and enjoy the life that they were basically working to enjoy in the last 10 years of their life, 15 years, it's all hell anyway, because it's just surgeries and pain. And it's just like, what the fuck?
You can't travel.
I'm sorry. Like, I can't, our generation is getting to a point where it's just like, this is not for us anymore.
No.
We were not created. We grew up in a recession. We grew up watching capitalism fail in so many ways, and with this pandemic, I feel like it's the last straw of knowing that, like, all of our debts from school, from credit cards, it's like, what is the value in this?
Exactly.
What am I sacrificing of my life, my dignity, to work like a monkey for nothing
to come away hopefully with a good amount of retirement, and then you're not even, and I don't say this in an ageism way about like aging is beautiful. However, we're animals. We do have a physical prime. So you're missing your physical prime, which is when you could do a lot of the things we are all human beings. We have dreams. We have in-depth thoughts. We have goals. There are certain things that you need an able body to do. Obviously, even basic things like traveling, getting on a flight, that's really not that easy for all 70-year-olds.
No.
It's just, and some can, but here's the thing. Depending on what you spent the last 40 years doing, it's going to determine how easy it is for you. And that's not even, like, we get one life here. I actually think we have multiple lives, but we get
for the sake of argument.
We get one life here. And you're telling me that the best and only way to do it is to
work like a dog
and waste away, and don't even, our bodies and minds are like nimble and able, and we're supposed to just like hunker down and grind so that when I'm 65, I can go to France.
Yeah. And like, this is why we started this podcast. We started that on that, we talked about that quote from Jim Carrey. Was it Jim Carrey?
Oh my God, it was his dad.
Of the dead. If it's like, you're gonna lose your job doing what you hate, so you might as well just go out and work and do what you love to do.
Yes.
And we started this pre-pandemic, this whole fucking like Marxist awakening that a lot of our generation and the younger generation's having right now, thank God. And it's like, it's just so interesting how full circle this is now, and how true that quote is, because we started this knowing that we wanted to start doing what we loved. You know, fuck the service industry, fuck these jobs that treat us like shit. We go home at the end of the day, we spent all our 20s, you know, we gave our 20s to this job, and this is fucking all love to the people that are in their 30s, 40s, still working these jobs. You know what I mean? Like I have so much respect for these people, and it's like, fuck you if you're going out and you're not tipping servers in general.
Yeah, you're a special breed of evil.
and B, fuck the argument that goes towards our generation of like, oh, and you just spend your money on avocado toast. Yes, I'm gonna spend my money on avocado toast, because buying a house in this market, not happening. Buying, you know, investing in our Roth IRAs, our regular IRAs, our
cryptocurrency.
Yes, it's so much to do, and it's so hard to figure out where to start.
Like swimming upstream.
Exactly.
With all the student loans we're saddled with.
Yes. It's so impossible. We were set up to fail from the beginning. So if you're wondering why our generation keeps talking about crypto, investing in that shit, and trying to figure, and OnlyFans, like it's
trying to figure out a different way to survive, because we know this ain't it.
Yeah, it's not a fucking secret why OnlyFans got as big as it is right now, and TikTok, and like where people are creating and getting it's just like no fucking shit, because people are trying to figure out how to get out of these asshole jobs that don't pay you benefits, that are not going to give you health care, or not enough, that don't look out for you, because everything's a competition, and you're replaceable at the end of the day.
And people are realizing, oh, a lot of these jobs that we just assumed had to be done in the office at a 9 to 5 in a cubicle can be done from home or remotely. And that's messing with people, because it's like, oh, you said this was required. I mean, we thought, but I was told, no, the work you're doing can be done remotely.
Yes.
You can have more time with your friends, with your family, at your house. You still working. You can do as much, probably better quality work, because Europe has it figured out, guys. I don't know if you've heard of Europe,
bro,
but it's a place where they take better care of their humans.
Wait. Can we talk about that? So Nordic labor system entices people into jobs with good pay and benefits and direct help for those who are still struggling. Not only does this mean that Nordic workers have far more equal pay and incomprehensible amounts of leisure time, if Americans, get ready for this, if Americans worked as much as Danes, we would have about 10 more weeks of vacation. The system actually works better at keeping people in the labor force.
Yeah.
The share of Americans aged between 25 and 64, either employed or looking for work in 2019, was 78%. That number was 5 points higher in Denmark, 5 points higher in Finland and Norway, and 10 points higher in Sweden.
Sweden is the jam. I'm telling you.
But we're the greatest country on earth?
We're greatest.
What are you fucking talking about?
They have maternity leave. They have paternity leave. They have required time off. Required, because the companies understand that to get the best work out of their employees, they need to have a well-balanced life. They need to have a little time off to produce the best work when they come back. And they do. And we just keep grind, hustle, grind, fry ourselves to the ground.
Yeah.
And
then they're more educated.
Yeah. And their education is free. And it's just as good.
And women have a lot more autonomy there, because they're paid equally. They have a lot more, they have education. They have, so they don't need to marry at fucking 20 anymore, like most women in America do. And therefore, and that's why statistically they are happier. The happier index is higher there.
Denmark has the happiest, but I don't know how they measure this, but it is what it is.
It is
the happiest population in the world. And after them is like Sweden, and it's all Scandinavia. I lived there when I was 11. I should have just stayed.
Where?
In Norway. And then we saw Finland, Sweden, and Denmark, but we were in Norway, and it was just like,
yeah.
I mean, the way that it's not that difficult. Like, it's difficult now that we've created a really fucked up, corrupt system, But conceptually, the way to take care of your people as a country, it's not that hard. And not only that, we have a blueprint. We can just look at Denmark. We can look at Sweden and be like, oh, this isn't a shot in the dark. I wonder if this will work. It's working. Don't worry about it. We can just copy them. It's like, we're idiots.
Capitalism is a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
It was hot in the 80s and 90s. And, and it's not anymore because it's just not sustainable because of the Industrial Reserve Army that's now created. It's a surplus of workers that can't find and will never find jobs that will pay them and give them the respect, let's not even talk about maternity and paternity care in this fucking country. That also, and daycare costs. It's like, it's fucking, it's mind blowing how
wait lists for daycare for like a year and a half wait list.
I visited Denmark for a couple weeks when I was in college, and we stayed with my friends. She had family there, and they were teachers, first of all, and like, I love teachers.
I know, my mom and dad.
And they knew more about American politics than we did.
Oh yeah.
They had us visit because one of them was a drama teacher, and me and my friend were both actors. So they had us visit the whole tour of their high school. They were high school teachers, and we visited like the theater class, and the kid, they were like fat, and they all spoke English because they're fucking so smart. And they were just asking the most intelligent questions about acting in America and their politics. Obama was just elected for the.
Oh my God!
And it was just like, it was amazing, and like you can tell everyone was so much happier there, and like and then how they dealt with climate change too, and sustainability was far and away better than how we deal with it now.
Paris has all around the city, like water fill stations, right? Only Paris. They offer still or sparkling.
Yeah.
A water fill station. Fill your water bottle up. You want Perrier? You're in Paris, bitch.
Fuck yeah.
Get it.
It's just so fucking sad how much we were set up to fail and how it's a means to an end. And
in that book I recommended during our death penalty episode, City of Inmates, where they talk about the incarceration system in Los Angeles. It starts in the 1700s, and it says, I wish I remember the phrasing, but it was talking about when Europeans were trying to advertise America as this new land and try to get people to move over here and buy land or just get land, not even buy. They were gifting it because they murdered indigenous populations. And they were literally in the advertisements for trying to get people over to what is now the U.S. They were calling it, this isn't the exact wording, but it used Anglo-Saxon. It was like an Anglo-Saxon paradise, basically just like a white paradise. They worded it that way. And they were enticing people by saying, don't worry, we've cleared out anyone that was there before. This is a white topia. This is a white paradise. Bring your families. That's how they were advertising it.
Sick.
Tight.
Well.
Yeah.
So
anyway.
yes, shout out the week. We have some articles that like really helped us with the research of this episode, so we'll link them in our show notes. Shout out to Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
And follow us on IG and Twitter at the SOS Pod. Are we on Patreon, Molly?
Yes.
We are.
Patreon, $3 a month, $7 a month, $11 a month. Just help us out. You love us. We love you.
We love Steve Ginn and
love
Nyjah Brooks, our real ones. We love them. We love you guys. We subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. We are there. Rate us, review us. It helps us in the algorithm. YouTube, subscribe to us on
it
YouTube.
does. And Patreon, like, jump on that because we're in the works planning some merch drops, and you're gonna want it. And if you're on our Patreon, you're gonna have to spend less money on it.
And exactly. And if you've seen Miss Molly Cottrell's merch for her music for Fly, and the ripening, you're gonna like
Nyjah, I love you so much.
You're gonna love, yes, oh my god, she's the best. You're gonna love the merch that we have in store for you.
Please support us. We love you. I'm Molly Cottrell.
And I'm Alyssa Rosano.
And here's to turning meltdown
into magic.